Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Hello, hockey fans. This is the Science of Hockey, and I'm the analyst. In this episode, we uncover the effects of caffeinated gum on hockey performance after jet lag. Does it enhance explosiveness or fall short on the ice? Stay tuned for the science behind the results.
All right, so have you ever wondered if, chewing some caffeinated gum could give you an edge in a sport like hockey? Especially if you're, dealing with jet lag.
Yeah, that's a question that I'm sure a lot of athletes think about.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's this really cool research in Nutrients Journal that looks at exactly that.
Oh, wow.
These researchers, they put elite hockey players through a simulated jet lag experience.
Oh, wow.
They even had them doing jumps and sprints on the ice late at night just to see if the gum made a difference. Talk about dedication to science.
Yeah, it really goes to show you what lengths people will go to understand these things, especially with something like jet lag that can be so unpredictable, right? When you travel across time zones and your body feels completely out of whack.
Tell me about it. I'm tired just thinking about it. But seriously, though, why is jet lag such a big deal for athletes? It's not just about being tired.
Right? You're right. It's not just about being tired. It really messes with your internal clock, like what scientists call your circadian rhythm.
Right.
And that rhythm controls way more than just your sleep cycle. It influences hormone production and even how well your muscles perform.
So these hockey players are already elite athletes, but imagine having to perform late at night after being awake for hours. No naps allowed. That's got to be a challenge even for the pros.
Oh, absolutely. This study actually tried to mimic that real-world scenario by keeping the players awake for an average of 11 hours after a full night's sleep.
Wow.
To see how that lack of sleep and that disruption of their rhythm would affect their performance both with and without the caffeine gum.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now let's bring in the caffeine, everyone's favorite pick-me-up. But does it actually live up to the hype when it comes to athletic performance, especially in a demanding sport like hockey?
Well, the research on caffeine in athletics is surprisingly mixed.
Really?
Some studies show that it can be really beneficial, especially when it comes to endurance.
Right.
But others show little to no effect. And when it comes to hockey specifically, the results have been all over the place.
Interesting. So why use chewing gum in this study? Was there something special about that?
That's a good question. The researchers chose chewing gum because it actually delivers caffeine into your system much faster than drinking coffee or taking a pill.
Oh.
It's absorbed through the lining of your mouth, so it gets into your bloodstream much more quickly.
So it's like a faster caffeine kick.
Got it. So walk me through how they actually designed this study.
Okay, so they had 14 national-level hockey players.
Wow.
A good mix of different positions. And these guys were in their off-season, but still in really good shape.
Really?
Each player went through 2 separate trials, one with caffeinated gum and one with a placebo gum separated by a week of rest.
Okay.
And this was a very carefully controlled study. They made sure that everyone followed the same diet in the days leading up to the trials and that they all did a standardized warm-up before each test. So basically, they did everything they could to make sure that the only difference between the 2 trials was whether or not the players had the caffeinated gum.
That makes sense. What kinds of tests did they actually put these players through?
They used a combination of off-ice and on-ice tests to measure different aspects of performance.
Okay.
Off the ice, they focused on power and strength, things like grip strength tests and different types of jumps.
Makes sense.
Then on the ice, they measured their speed and endurance with sprints agility tests and this thing called the yo-yo intermittent recovery test, which is specifically designed to assess stamina in hockey players.
Okay, all this talk about hockey is making me want to lace up my skates. But let's get to the good stuff, the results. Did that caffeinated gum actually work its magic?
Well, the results were kind of a mixed bag,
Oh.
which I guess you often find in science.
Yeah.
So off the ice, the players who had the caffeinated gum, they actually jumped significantly higher. That suggests that the caffeine gave them a real boost in explosive power. All right. You would think that would translate to better performance on the ice, right?
You would think so, but here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
When they measured performance on the ice, there was no real difference between the caffeinated gum and the placebo.
Huh.
No difference in their sprints, their agility, or their endurance on the ice.
So wait. They jumped higher, but it didn't make them better skaters. How is that possible?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
You know, hockey isn't just about raw power.
Right.
It's a sport that involves a lot of complex movements and split-second decision-making.
Right.
Think about all the coordination it takes to control a puck pass to a teammate or dodge an opponent, all while flying across the ice.
So are you saying that the caffeine might help with the power part, but not so much with that finesse and coordination that's crucial for hockey?
That's one possible explanation. And the researchers also pointed out that jet lag itself might be playing a role here.
Oh, right.
You know, it messes with your circadian rhythm, and that can impact not just your physical coordination, but also your mental alertness and decision-making.
So maybe the jet lag was preventing the players from being able to use that extra power as effectively.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a supercharged engine but a wonky steering wheel.
I like that analogy.
So you need both power and control to really excel in hockey.
Right.
And this research seems to indicate that while caffeine might help with the power aspect,
Okay.
it's not a guarantee, especially when you're dealing with jet lag.
So if I'm a hockey player facing jet lag, should I just forget about the caffeine gum?
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
Even though we didn't see a significant difference on those on-ice tests,
Right.
the fact that it led to higher jumps is still interesting.
Right.
You know, it might be helpful for things like training or warming up where that burst of power is really important.
Okay, so maybe popping some gum pregame could help get those legs fired up, but it's not going to magically solve all the problems that come with jet lag.
Exactly. And you know what? This raises some other important questions. This study focused on elite hockey players
Right.
who were in their off-season.
Yeah.
I wonder if the results would be different if you looked at less experienced players. Or even these same players during the competitive season when they're more finely tuned.
That's a really good point. Maybe players who haven't reached that elite level might actually benefit more from that caffeine boost.
Yeah.
Or during the season when their bodies are already under so much stress, the caffeine could push them over the edge.
It's definitely something to consider. And it's also worth noting that this study used a specific dose of caffeine,
Okay.
3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight.
Okay.
That's considered a moderate dose.
Yeah.
So it's possible that higher or lower doses could lead to different results.
So there's still a lot more to learn about how caffeine interacts with jet lag and how that impacts athletic performance. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Absolutely not. And that's what makes this research so fascinating. It opens up more doors than it closes, which is often a sign of really good science. It makes you think critically about these things and avoid making blanket statements.
I agree. And it reminds us that the human body is incredibly complex and always adapting.
Absolutely.
What works for one athlete might not work for another, even under the exact same conditions.
And speaking of individual differences,
Yeah.
this study only looked at male hockey players.
Right.
I think it would be really interesting to see if you got similar results with female athletes.
Yeah. Hormones and other physiological differences could definitely play a role in how women respond to both caffeine and jet lag.
Exactly.
Plus, we can't forget about the psychological effects of caffeine.
Oh, definitely. Some athletes feel more alert and focused after caffeine, while others might feel jittery or anxious.
Right.
And those mental aspects of performance are huge.
Especially in a high-pressure sport like hockey.
Exactly.
I always say that sports are 90% mental, and the other half is physical. But this study is a good reminder that we can't just look at one aspect of performance in isolation.
I completely agree. And it's not just about individual athletes either. Coaches and trainers can use this kind of research to make smarter decisions about how they help their athletes deal with jet lag and reach their full potential.
Yeah. Imagine being able to tailor training schedules, nutrition plans, and even caffeine strategies to an athlete's specific needs and travel plans.
That's the exciting part of sports science. Using data and a deep understanding of the human body to really personalize training and performance strategies.
Absolutely. So what does all this mean for our listeners who maybe aren't elite hockey players? What's the takeaway here?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is that caffeine isn't some kind of magic potion.
Right.
It might give you a boost in certain situations, but it's not going to solve all your performance problems.
Yeah.
Especially not something as complex as jet lag.
It all comes back to listening to your own body and figuring out what works best for you.
Exactly. Pay attention to how caffeine affects you, both physically and mentally. Try different doses and timing to see what feels right.
Right.
And never underestimate the importance of sleep hydration and good nutrition.
Especially when you're traveling across time zones.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are the fundamentals.
Yeah.
No amount of caffeine can replace a good night's sleep and a healthy diet.
Well said.
Ah,
And maybe most importantly, don't be afraid to reach out to the experts.
yes.
Coaches, trainers, sports nutritionists, people who can help you develop a plan that's tailored to your individual needs and goals.
Absolutely. Whether you're dealing with jet lag or any other challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because even though we all love geeking out over the science of performance, sometimes the best approach is to strip it back down to the basics and focus on those core elements that lead to success.
I couldn't agree more. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. This whole study really focused on the physical side of things. But what about the mental game in hockey? Things like reaction time, decision-making, spatial awareness, those are all so important on the ice, too.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if caffeine could play a role there, even when players are dealing with jet lag.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
We always hear about the physical side of sports,
right.
but the mental game is just as important.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so.
Yeah.
I wonder if future research could look at how caffeine impacts those cognitive skills in hockey players,
Yeah.
especially when they're dealing with jet lag.
It would be really fascinating to see if caffeine could actually help players stay sharper and make better decisions on the ice,
Right.
even when their bodies are feeling the effects of travel.
Yeah, it could be like a secret mental weapon
Exactly.
to combat those physical challenges.
It's a good reminder that athletic performance isn't just one thing.
Right.
You got the physical, the mental, and even the environment all playing a part.
I totally agree. That's why I love digging into these research studies.
Yes.
They make you rethink your assumptions, open up new questions, and they ultimately help us better understand how incredible the human body really is.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be able to use this knowledge to help athletes perform at their absolute best,
Yeah.
no matter where in the world they're competing.
That's the dream, right?
It is.
So to all you hockey players, athletes, and science fans out there, keep those brains and bodies fueled. Stay curious and never stop exploring the amazing world of human performance.
And keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.